What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court for today for a special live trade deadline edition. I am your host, Sean Murphy, joined by a special guest, not only one of my favorite reporters in the Pistons space, but just one of my favorite people in general. He covers the Detroit Pistons for The Athletic. He is my guy, Hunter Patterson. Hunter, what's going on, brother? Good to see you. Good to have you back on the pod, my guy.
I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back with you, and I'm looking forward to chopping it up. So everything
Absolutely,
you said is
man.
mutual, by the way. Definitely one of my favorite reporters, one of my favorite people. So
Appreciate you, man. I'll always have a lot of fun whenever I see you at LCA, just because we're always just cracking jokes and just, chopping it up before the game. So always fun whenever we have the opportunity to come on a pod and do it here as well. So appreciate you taking the time, especially during a super busy week. And I mean, just probably should get started with the story that everyone's talking about, Jacques Landale going to the Atlanta Hawks. No,
you
Jaden
got the
Ivey.
streets out of control right now.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, no, for real, this deadline's actually been pretty wild thus far. All the reports have been hush hush, and everyone was thinking it was going to be a dead deadline, but that has been quite literally the opposite, or it couldn't be farther from the truth, I should say. And the Pistons, they got in on the fun as well. For some people, not very fun, but the Pistons did trade Jaden Ivey to the Chicago Bulls. Even still saying that out loud is just one of those like weird quiplash statements. It feels like it doesn't feel real, but it is. The JB, interestingly enough, still has yet to comment on the deal and is treating it as not official, pretty much, saying that he's waiting for all the physicals to clear. I think it's more so, and Hunter, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. I think it's because there's a very realistic chance that deal could expand with teams trying to go out and get more players. That deal could potentially expand into something larger because you can't necessarily aggregate some of these contracts, and so this is the way where you can actually move players a little more easily. What are your thoughts?
Potentially, I think, I don't know definitively, but
Right.
JB he's, as you know, always really politically correct, and I don't think he would want to slip up and say anything that could come off the wrong way, or I mean, it could. My first thought, honestly, is that it is just kind of pending the physical. Kev was in the building today, but he has to go through the process of getting physical. Same with Dario. So I think it's probably more along those lines. But I mean, we've seen how crazy the deadline has been so far over the last couple of days. So very well could be more there potentially.
Yeah, for sure. As you mentioned, I mean, Kevin Huerter is in the building. He's practicing with the team. He has been playing throughout the season. So I don't think it's really as much worrying about him passing his physical. I guess if anything, it would be if there would be something that would pop up about, Jaden Ivey. They did post, the team account did post like a intro post, saying what up, Doe, to Kevin Huerter. There has not been such a post for Dario Saric. My assumption, and I'm sure you have this assumption too, is that the likelihood isn't necessarily super high he suits up as a Piston at any point.
Yeah, that's another one where I'm not entirely positive. I never want to speculate, but I personally didn't see him at the facility today, and he's out for tomorrow pending the physical. Kev is questionable pending the trade, rather. So just kind of remains to be seen.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where it's all up in the air. Although I would say Dario Saric, I believe he's been coming back. Like I think he was dealing with some knee stuff. Might have torn his ACL at one point, and his salary, again, it can't be aggregated, meaning you can't bundle it with other players, but it can still be traded. So it remains to be seen whether Dario Saric ends the deadline in a Pistons uniform. But talking about like kind of why Detroit made the move, like from your perspective, why do you think this is something that just kind of made sense for all parties?
Financially, I would say the two contracts that they brought in with Dario and Kevin, they're both expiring. Kevin's, I believe, is about 17.9. Dario's, I want to say, is like 5.4, something like that. So I think with JI being up for, he was going to hit restricted free agency. He had a qualifying offer, I believe, between 8 to 13 million, depending on how much he ended up starting, and he wasn't starting really much at all. So I think it made sense financially. There's no obligation to either player in Kev or Dario this offseason. It's kind of like a rental situation, if you will. If they like the way Kevin plays, then they can try to renegotiate in the summer. He could potentially play himself into a bigger deal. Who knows? And immediately, I think I know a lot of people are pessimistic about Kev just because he is having like the second worst shooting year for himself from 3-point range as far as percentages are concerned. But I was in Sacramento the year that he was averaging 40.2% from three, which was a career best for him. He was playing with Domas. Domas is not too similar to JD, but they're both Domantas Sabonis, by the way. But they are bigs who get a lot of screen assists. JD is starting to be more adept at running DHOs and freeing guys up with his body. We see that with Duncan. So I'm probably a little bit more optimistic about the way Kevin can impact the team moving forward, although Ivy had the better 3-point percentage this year. Kev is someone who's a 37.1% 3-point shooter for his career. So,
and a bit of a higher volume shooter than Ivy is too.
Definitely higher volume, better movement shooter. And there's other qualities of his game, I think, that get overlooked just because he's as much of a weapon as he is from three, I would say. So
he also unfortunately has the aura of, do you have games on your phone? And when you have that appearance, like people can kind of not take you super seriously, but in all seriousness, like he is a really good NBA player. I do think there's something to be said about being in a system that he's not going to be quite as high in the totem pole. I would argue, he kind of was the primary focal point for 3-point shooting for the Bulls while he was there. Whereas here, he's going to be he's going to be one of the primary, shooting vessels, but not, going to be the one they solely rely upon. And, you bring up, like how, Duran's like a pretty, high level screen assist guy. You lay it out really well in the article that, that multiple bigs on the Pistons have more screen assists this season than anyone on the Bulls have had this year. And then on top of that, I think you just throw in the fact that, all due respect to Josh Giddey, but I mean, Cade Cunningham's the best playmaker in basketball outside of Nikola Jokic right now. I mean, last night at that game, it felt like we were watching the two best passers in the world going toe to toe against each other. And I think you've seen Duncan really thrive being in a system with this high level of playmaking. I think Kevin Huerter has the chance to do so as well. And I just, just from my perspective, I think there's a better chance of Kevin Huerter solving his issues in Detroit than Jaden Ivey being able to work out his. And that's because Huerter is going to be able to play within a role that he knows exactly how he can play well, whereas Ivey is still in a discovery phase of his basketball journey. Mm-hmm. And Chicago is a place where he's going to be able to work that out more with who I think Billy Donovan is a really high level coach and especially a basketball development coach. So, hopefully that's a place where he can go and, really, kind of get his career back on track and start feeling better. And, we'll see, if his future is there, but, you kind of brought up like the financial constraints. It's like he had a $30 million cap hold just with his restricted free agency status this summer. And when you're talking about Duran's contract coming up, Asar has an extension that's looming. Isaiah Stewart is going to be extension eligible. And that's before you talk about wanting to make any additions and, potentially bringing back Tobias in some form of degree. But, I think the big thing here is this is just something that allows both sides to move on, and it gives the Pistons some extra ammunition in an area that's clearly a weakness. They're bottom 3 in attempts and makes it from 3 this year. And I mean, Kevin Huerter, it's like worst comes to worst, like you said, it's just a low risk flyer.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's really unfortunate for J.I. He was someone who was just a great person. The entire locker room is really cool. They're all great people. And I mean,
super easy to cover, easy to root for, just really nice,
for sure.
Personable guy.
Definitely. And the thing is, like, he clearly was on pace for a career year last season. The injuries just kind of derailed everything, which is unfortunate. And I just don't think the Pistons necessarily have the time to wait for him to kind of just elevate to the level that he was at. And it's unfortunate for him, but I think this is a move that you're banking on Kev kind of, I guess, like regressing to the mean, if you will, or progressing to the mean, however you want to phrase that, because he's an elite 3-point shooter, and it just wasn't really working out for him the way it was in Sacramento when he was just previously in Chicago.
Yeah. If this was a year where if this was like last season, where the Pistons were pushing for a play-in, I think your patience is a little more, is a little more, easy to digest, because it's like, okay, well, things can still turn around. We're in a position here where, we're pushing for a play-in spot. Let's see how competitive we can be. And, maybe a summer with Ivy, taking the time to recoup, maybe he can be back to that level next year and we can bring him in on like a team-friendly deal. But when you're making a push for June, you have to be able, and like one of the strengths of this team has been depth. Mm-hmm. And, even your depth is tested when you get to the postseason, because you can really focus on your matchup in a far more granular, detailed level, where you can even game plan through the 6 through 10 guys. And looking at where Ivy was kind of being used, he was probably like an 8th through 10th man, kind of in his time in Detroit. And that's probably what Kevin Huerter will be too. And it's like, I know it sounds marginal and probably not flashy for a guy you drafted 5th overall in a draft that has some really good players. By the way, one of them being Jalen Duren, which gives you solace for this not necessarily working out as well. But, it's like you got to be able to get every little drop out of 1 through 10, 1 through 12, however deep you're going to go in your playoff rotation. And just being realistic in a good system and, just where they're at right now, I think Huerter just has a better chance of doing that at the moment.
I agree with you. And the Bulls seem like they have a surplus of guards. I know Kobe just got shipped to Charlotte, but hopefully
for Colin Sexton, they keep bringing back more guards. What are they doing?
I have no idea, but hopefully, like in the midst of all that, J.I. can kind of figure things out, and athleticism, the explosion, all of those things can kind of come back for him to be the player he was for the Pistons eventually.
Yep. And the big thing is they still have that trade exception, the $14.3 million trade exception available to them. This was not used in this deal. And so let's just kind of lay out,
real quick, my fault. This reminds me too, like
you're good.
Pick swap, the Pistons right now, I believe, are supposed to be slotted at 29. The Wolves were supposed to be slotted at like 23. So
I think it's like 1 through 19 protected, but Minnesota's not going to get up to anything higher than 19 anyway. They're a good team.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like it's not the highest jump, and it might be kind of something you just kind of bat an eye at. Like, okay, they move up slightly in the late first round, but this is a draft that's stacked, and that could potentially pay dividends as well.
Yeah, in a good draft class, that's something that you have to really take value in. And I know, and I've talked to people as well, are kind of like, what do you mean at this point? We're really good. F them picks. Let's use those picks. I think in a lot of sports, and even just in basketball in the past, you're conditioned to let's just trade those picks, go and get someone, make a move, make a splash, let's ride, but it's like, that's just not entirely how this version of the NBA works. I know people keep hearing the word aprons and repeater tax and like and all these like these words that just sound like confusing. But the reality of it is, if you look at the teams that are truly thriving right now, they're the teams that were built through the draft and teams that haven't really used those picks other than getting players that can develop into a role.
Right.
And it's like, if you want to talk about like how the Pistons are going to be able to sustain the success, because we just laid out right away, this team's about to get pretty expensive quicker than you think. Cade's already on like his supermax extension. Duran's probably, based on how he's playing, if he doesn't get a max, he's getting pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine. I'm not sure what your vibe is on that. I know, probably don't have any reporting on that, but I just, based off of what I've seen, I think he's getting pretty close to the max.
He'll definitely, I think, end up making more than he would have had he signed the rookie scale extension ahead of the season. So,
100%.
For sure be more expensive.
Yeah. He might be able to add one or two more zeros to the end of that mansion he's going to be able to buy. Like he's feeling pretty good
on himself, and it paid off.
Yeah, 100%. And someone who's kind of betting on himself as well is Danis Jenkins. I know he has one more game of eligibility, but I imagine he's going to be able to. He's so integral in what they're doing, and especially after this move, he's part of the rotation at the very least for this season. They'll have that figured out. And then he's a restricted free agent into this summer. And I imagine, I know other people have mentioned it as well, that he's someone that will probably garner some interest. So will be interesting to see there. But, I just, knowing what they, feel about Danis, I imagine they're going to, make it a priority if they can to keep him in the city. But I mean, certainly someone, I mean, he might be a two-way player by contract status. He's been an NBA player all season long.
Absolutely. Yeah. JB talks about it often. Just given the amount of experience he has at the NBA level, although he played, I believe, 5 years in college, he's someone who's polished. He came out of college polished, and you just see it with the poise he has. I think he's very clearly the second unit's best just offensive initiator. So that's something that can't go unnoticed or undervalued.
Yeah, no doubt. And he's someone who plays with a lot of energy, and like no matter what, like he's just an insane competitor. Like I remember like the intro video that played, that was from the fan preview earlier in the year, and that's like on like a Saturday morning. Players normally like they come in like it's something that's supposed to be fun for the fans, but like generally guys take it pretty light, like they play it like they play a little scrimmage, and mostly guys are just kind of jogging up and down the court and everything. Not Danis. He was playing as if it was a preseason game, and like even after you would get makes, he would be like,
he was hooping like he had something to prove.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you realize it's like 1:30 on a Saturday right now. You don't have to go this hard, but it's like he's one of those guys that it doesn't matter if he's playing in a NBA gym or a jungle gym. He treats it as an opportunity, and he's going to maximize it. And that's exactly what he's done this year. Going back to as far as the trade exception and what could the Pistons do, there's kind of a couple of different options, Hunter, and there's kind of the option of they could potentially go and add a player. They could potentially be a facilitator and get additional salary. And they also, correct me if I'm wrong, have until about July, I think it's July 7th or July 3rd to use the exception.
Right.
So kind of detail, for people that might not like understand, like what kind of like those paths like look like and why it might make sense. People hear, well, why would they be a facilitator when, we could go get someone right now?
Just the fact that you could bring in, I guess, just additional assets, like financially. You could potentially bring in more draft capital, and to the TPE point, it is the 7th of July. That was when they made the sign and trade with Sacramento to send Schroeder. So they don't have to use it immediately ahead of tomorrow. And I mean, it's something that they could revisit in the offseason if they see a player that they like. A player who may not be available now could become available in the summer. So
Yep,
there's optionality there with that. And I don't think there's a huge rush to use it. They absolutely could. They could see something that they like. They could finagle a deal, if you will, with another team that needs more cash considerations. And I think there's a chance to use it, obviously, but there's not a huge push to. You don't have to use it before tomorrow. You have until July 7th to do so.
for sure. And I think just going off of, based on the way that we're talking about it, based also on the way that you've kind of reported on it the last couple of days and just kind of how, things have transpired, I think one thing we can kind of say is anything can happen in the trade market. So, take what we're saying with a grain of salt. But based off of the information we're hearing, based off of the vibes and just kind of how things are going, don't expect the Pistons to be making this massive blockbuster. Like, don't expect Giannis to be packing his bags and to be finding a place to play in Detroit. I think rather it's how can they use like that exception and how can they find additional players, in the rotation to improve. Less of a, like a Jaren Jackson move like Utah did, more of like another Dennis Schroeder type move from last year where you get another quality veteran who can fit in a role. Do you think that's kind of fair to say?
That's what I'm expecting. We always, as you said, mention that anything can happen at any point. There's a ton of time between now and tomorrow at 3, although it's less than 24 hours. Like that, so much could happen in that time. A lot of dominoes could fall around the league that make possibly the Pistons feel they need to be more aggressive. But I personally am not really expecting anything too massive on the trade market for the Pistons. So,
Yep.
But again, you never know what could happen, and we have some time between now and 3 tomorrow.
I mean, there's already been multiple trades that have made me scratch my head, and trades
Like,
that have,
who knew James Harden was going to be available before a couple of days ago? Or
let alone to
yesterday?
Cleveland.
Right.
This man went to Cleveland. It's crazy.
I did not expect that at all.
Yeah, I didn't expect that at all. Another thing I didn't really expect, to be honest with you.
You are hilarious for having the button ready, though.
Hey, I always got it on deck, man. We got it ready. We got it ready to fly. 100%. But something that honestly kind of surprised me too is I figured a Keon Ellis type would be someone the Pistons would have interest in, but to see like, oh no, that was real. Like they called, like Sacramento and like they wondered about that, about like his status, but it just sounds like, just based off of your reporting, correct me if I'm wrong, sounds like the Cleveland deal was pretty deep into surface there, and that kind of shut that door as a possibility. Is that kind of accurate to say?
Yeah, I think the Kings just like what they saw from Cleveland, and that kind of just was the more opportune, if you will. I guess they just saw that as being like
the asset. They like DeAndre Hunter. Yeah. Whereas with Detroit, you could have maybe gotten Ivy and taken a flyer. I think they wanted the size.
Yeah, that, and then also Keon hasn't dealt with major injuries that way. DeAndre has dealt with injuries. I'm thinking about this backwards, but DeAndre is someone who, like you said, has the size. He's been more of a proven player over the years than J.I. has, and I think that could have potentially piqued the Kings' interest a little bit more.
Yeah, I think they also, and I mean, more about the Kings than I do. You kind of coming from, I know you're more from kind of the Bay Area, but I know you spent some time in Sacramento as well. But they need, the last thing they need is more guards. They need wings. They need, they need some size. So
they need guidance just in general.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. But like back to Detroit, it's like it's like you look like up and down. It's like, yeah, sure, like the shooting is a weakness, but it's like when they're going out and like watching, games like last night against Denver, it's like a question. It's like, okay, but like, how much more do they really need if they are going up and playing to that standard? I think if there's anything you worry about, just talking about the basketball, it is the half court offense, not just because it's the namesake of the podcast, but also just because when you talk about, like, especially when you're playing high level teams like Denver, like let's say the Pistons were to have to play a 7-game series against Denver, right? There's going to be a lot of times where you're going to have to be able to go out and create half court offense up against Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And I can't say confident, as good as the Pistons have been, I can't say confidently they're ready to do that right now.
I can't either. I mean, and I'm not sure how long AG is out, but a completely healthy Nuggets roster, considering the fact that the game slows down in the playoffs, you have to be more efficient in the half court. Teams are going to be extremely locked in on Cade. They're probably going to try to force someone else to beat them. That is not something I'm entirely confident in with the Pistons if they're playing up against a team like the Nuggets. I don't see as much competition in the East, but there still are some areas that the Pistons can shore up as far as just another guy who can get a bucket at any time.
Yep.
The shooting obviously is something that they tried to address with Kevin. People are kind of split on that one. We'll see how it goes. I'm more optimistic, I think, than the general public about him.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you've seen firsthand, and you've kind of been able to cover a little bit more. Kevin Huerter is a good player. It's just a matter of
he had his ups and downs in Sacramento, so it's not like it's like just this player who's
sunshine and lollipops.
Yeah, like he's not immune to shooting slumps like anyone else, but we'll see what ends up happening over, like we said, the next almost 24 hours, 22 hours, whatever it is. I'm in journalism for a reason. So
yeah, no, 100%. I think just analyzing like what we can see though, just basketball wise, like I think if we're looking, again, a lot of things can change. The Eastern Conference, by the time you view this podcast, could be very different based off of whatever moves transpire. But like, I think kind of like what we know immediately and like what we know already is teams like Boston got better at the deadline for sure, going and getting a Vucevic. And I think I think you've seen Boston kind of have like varying levels of success against Detroit, where in some like the last game where they came to Detroit, Boston won big because Duren was able to really get going, and they kept trying to cycle guys in and out. No one could stop Duren. Right. I think Vucevic, we've seen him struggle against Duren too, but he at least has a little bit of a bigger frame. Might be able to have a better chance between him and Keita than you might with like a Luka Garza.
Right.
And then I think the other thing as well is, and this is where it'll be interesting to see how ready Duren is for this in the playoffs. I think a lot of teams are going to be denying Duren from trying to get the ball even up, above his waist and, getting it over his head. I think like Boston, one of the things they're really good at is they're elite at preventing shots at the rim, like not blocking shots, but preventing them from even happening based off of like deflections and all of those different things. So I think that's something that they're going to have to really look out for come the postseason.
I agree. I think there's just so much more you can do. And you mentioned it not too long ago, but game plan wise, there's so much more you can do when you have time to just say we're keying in on this. We're watching as much film as possible. We don't have to travel to another city to play another team. We don't have a back-to-back coming up. There's just so much more scouting and keying in on people's traits that you can do to try to neutralize them. Yeah.
And you can kind of guess what they're going to look like based off of things that teams try throughout the season. But the thing is in the postseason, the elite coaches will double down on those tricks, but then they'll find variations that are personalized to your deepest weaknesses. Like for example, Asar Thompson, I think something you're going to see a lot throughout the postseason. Some of the really smart defensive teams, they've just straight up just left him alone when he's out in the perimeter. And then when he drives to the basket, they just clog with all 5 guys in the lane because they're essentially daring him to pull up outside of the cylinder, or they're daring one of Detroit's shooters to make it, which unless Duncan Robinson's on the court before this Kevin Huerter trade, there's just not a lot of guys you can consistently say they're going to knock that down.
Yeah. To the point about AT, I think the Pistons did a pretty good job last year against the Knicks in kind of just putting him in the dunker spot. JD and him were developing some good chemistry. JD's improved as a passer since then. I've always appreciated how intuitive of a cutter AT is. He's able to get downhill really quick when he catches the ball, and teams are kind of sagging off him a bit. But yeah, I mean, he's hopefully going to be even more aggressive and be decisive in his movements when he gets downhill and is looking to score in the paint.
And I think something that, again, just is massively overlooked from last postseason is just how important it's going to be for Detroit to have Isaiah Stewart healthy, just on both sides of the court. I mean, I think this season, I think more and more people I think the general basketball world has woken up to how good of a player he actually is. But it's like, even then, I don't think people truly even recognize like his defensive prowess is brought up all the time, and rightfully so. But he's a lot more skilled of an offensive player than people give him credit for. There's nights like he had a night where he went out and scored 30 this year.
Yeah, I mean I'm
31.
sorry.
My bad. Respect.
I looked away. I looked away real quick. I'm like back and forth on my phone kind of right now. But
you're good. That's the time of the season. If I ever just need to ramble, just let me know.
Nah, not at all. This is AT we're talking about.
I was just talking about Isaiah Stewart. Like I was
we're
talking
about Stu. Yeah, because I was like, man, 30 points, but
yeah. No, I was just talking about like how when you're talking about the postseason and the way that like people talked last year, like, oh, if they had Ivy, with all due respect to that, I think you're seeing with how, like, I think this year people have woken up. Isaiah Stewart is legit. And I'm talking about his defensive impact obviously would be huge, but it's like his ability to even go get you buckets when you need it on the offensive end is something that's really shown through this year.
Yeah, I just appreciate how patient he is when he gets in the paint. Because it reminds me of the way opponents see him when they're coming downhill trying to dunk on him. He's not the tallest person, although his wingspan is ridiculous. They see him and they're like, oh man, we can probably punch one on him, and then it doesn't work. And when he's in the paint, it doesn't really look like he's as explosive as he is. He's not the quickest. He's not like the best lateral movement wise, but like he finds his ways to pick his spots, be patient in the paint. He'll pump fake you to death, and then he'll kind of get to a floater if he needs to, or just lay it up off the glass. And I mean, he's 32% from three this year, so it's not the greatest, but he can stretch the floor when need be.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, again, just in case people need to know, stop.
There we go.
Just stop.
Yeah, Stu is Stu would probably prefer if people didn't stop, because
I mean, you know what? Keep trying if you want to at your own dismay. Yeah, no, it's pretty insane the level that he's gotten to. Is like, I knew he could be a good rim protector, but it's like it's gotten to a different level this year for sure. Yeah. Before we go, because I do want to let you go here soon. It is super busy right now.
We're chopping it up.
I do want to get some of your thoughts on some of the things that have happened beyond the Pistons, just because there's so many deals. Like we hinted to the James Harden one in Cleveland. I think, if just to touch on that one real quickly, it's so interesting because under JB, Cleveland kind of had a similar identity to to what Detroit has now, where it was defensive centric, kind of, you would refer to them as like junkyard dogs. Whereas now they've gone so in the other direction. And and I guess in theory, Harden could be a better defender when you talk about his height and things like that. But I just don't know how this is the thing that's supposed to get them over the hump. I guess, from your perspective, is this just to me reeks like desperation?
Yeah, I guess maybe trying to appease Donovan Mitchell I don't know how it'll work out in the postseason. I love James Harden. I think he's extremely fun to watch. He was just ridiculous when he got to Houston, and since then it's kind of tapered off a bit. But I mean, even when he was doing his thing with the Clippers, it was good until it wasn't, which is usually in the postseason. So I just, based on history, based on his track record, I don't have a ton of faith in James in the playoffs. And that is kind of also how I feel about Donovan Mitchell. Like, he's
Yeah.
been on great regular season teams. He isn't quite, to me, a 1A. Like, he'll get you 30. He'll put up flashy scoring numbers. He'll dunk on somebody. He'll drop you as well. Like, there's a ton of things that he does great. I just, like Harden, I haven't seen him be at that elite level in the playoffs that contributes to winning in a way past just I had 30 or 40 in a postseason game.
I mean, the player he's compared to the most is Dwayne Wade.
And even D-Wade is my favorite player of all time. So I'm like,
absolutely. But
don't love this.
But even Dwayne Wade, as awesome as Dwayne Wade was, even Dwayne Wade needed Shaq. Even Dwayne Wade needed LeBron. Like, there's only a short list of guys in the history of the league that are 1As, let alone multiple time champions as the 1A. So I think that's like for Detroit, you hit the jackpot, because I think they feel pretty comfortable if they have a 1A right now, and Cade with kind of all the areas and the things that he can do. But with Donovan, it's like he should be good enough to be a 1A. Maybe if he was 6'6", he'd be a 1A. But I think the height, and then I think on top of that, you have two great defensive bigs in Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. But I don't think not either of them are naturally, for lack of a better term, dogs. I think they have a team where, as they're currently built and kind of as the style that they're leaning into, I think as the grind of the postseason comes, and I think that's like with the way that like a Detroit is built, where they just defend like hell and, you know, play with a lot of physicality. I think historically they've wilted to that, and I think they created a roster that's bound to do that, perhaps in an even worse fashion. Now, at least James Harden can play, and that's something you can't really say about Darius Garland a whole lot, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's an upgrade, obviously, over DG. Like, Darius he's good, but it's unfortunate. He seems like he's just always hurt with a foot injury in particular. He like fractured his jaw a few years ago, I believe. There's just been really unfortunate injuries for him, and hopefully he can get a fresh start. I mean, personally, I'd rather live in LA than I would in Cleveland. That might just be me, but hopefully he'll be able to have a fresh start in a new city for the first time in his career, and be able to progress there with Kawhi.
Wish I would have sat down for that one, Hunter. That was a pretty shocking revelation.
Hot takes right here.
Rather be in LA than Cleveland. This guy's crazy. No, no, I agree. It sucks because it's like it literally now he has toes on both feet that have been hurt, and I think I've even heard that they were talking about him playing with plates in his shoes, and it's like when you're talking about, it's like, oh man, at 26 now, like, could he potentially like heal and get to a better place? Maybe Steve Ballmer can put all that Microsoft money into healing his feet with a witch doctor, but it's like it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I do think it makes sense for both sides, but for Cleveland, it's like the odds aren't high, but I guess you got to take the shot anyway. A deal that I think the most surprising deal of the day, without a doubt, was the Anthony Davis to Washington deal. And look, if you view it from the prism of, oh gosh, they turned Luka into Marvin Bagley, Chris Middleton, and a couple of firsts, and then Max Christie, it's like, okay, not great, of course. But if you look at the fact that now Dallas has, I think they have 8 instead of 3 picks going forward now, between first and second round. And they have, I think they cleared $70 million off their salary today with that trade. which being young, being not good and expensive, not
Terrible
a good combination to be.
Right. Yeah. I
So,
mean, that was one that surprised me. In theory, like if Trey Young and AD could both be healthy next season, you continue to tank for the rest of this year, then you restart fresh next year with Trey. I really like Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, Bilal, AD.
whatever they get in the draft this year.
Whatever they get in the draft, Trey Johnson off the bench, like they could be interesting, but that's a huge could. And I don't necessarily I'm not putting my money on AD to stay healthy.
Yeah, I don't think anyone should be going to put their bets into whatever app they like to use to get them into the finals. But I think if you're talking about a Wizards team that since John Wall has been scrambling for something to be excited about, you have two guys who were former All-Stars in AD and Trey, where listen, when healthy, they are still like high level players, and in theory.
Absolutely.
Like in theory, the way that they're building this team is a way that you can kind of hide Trey Young a little bit more effectively with two rim protectors in Sarr and Davis when available. And I mean, listen, if they do get a really good pick this year, top 3, top 4, this suddenly looks really interesting.
I'm taking hard right now if I'm the Wizards.
Oh, like, absolutely. They won't need much help, but I mean, yeah. I mean, like Anthony Davis is not playing again this season. Breaking news,
right.
But I think the biggest thing for them is if you're talking about how do we get our fans to, like because the number one thing you need as a fan to really, to buy in is hope,
right.
And it's like these are two guys that have gotten to deep levels of the playoffs that do know how to win. And I mean, when they are on the court at their respective games, they are pretty good. It's just, I don't know what the ceiling is. That's really going to depend on the developments their youth takes. And as good as some of those guys are, it's really just projecting at that point. But like, I think some teams like they should be graded on a different scale. And I think for the Washington Wizards, I think for the first time in a decade, I'm excited to watch a Wizards game next year.
Same.
And like, if that's the case for the general NBA populace, that's a win. Because we literally haven't been able to say that about the Wizards in a decade.
Yeah. I mean, it's been pretty bleak.
Since John Wall stumbled on his cruise on his yacht after he signed the Supermax.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big Keyshawn George guy, but I mean, I was kind of tuning in to watch him play. Alex Sarr has had a really good second year, but I mean, there wasn't a ton to be excited for there. No. So now it seems like they're on the up and up if injuries don't interfere like they have in the past with those two guys.
And that's the thing you always have to throw out there. I think with Trey this year, I think some of that was kind of, okay, he's clearly not going to be in Atlanta for very long.
Right.
Some of that is real in the past, though. I mean, listen, with Anthony Davis, I think that's very real. But I would argue with some of the stuff in Dallas. I mean, if you believe a lot of the high quality reporting that's been done around his time in Dallas, like it sounds like he was kind of asked to rush back at certain points, to kind of help improve that the trade wasn't a mistake. And I think coming into a situation where the last thing he's going to be is rushed. I think if you're talking about like what is a good outlook for him health wise, that's the type of situation he needs to be in, where it is treated with more like with kitty gloves than it has in the past.
I agree. Hopefully he has some time to rest and recoup, get his body together, and gain some chemistry with Trey over the summer.
And then lastly, I think what low key could be the most interesting, and if it phases out well, could be the most consequential move of this deadline.
Okay.
Jaren Jackson Jr. to Utah. I mean,
that was interesting.
It's at first, I think a lot of us go, what? Because again, it just sounds like it sounds like something that was just thrown together in like an AI generated trade deadline of of like, Jared Jackson Jr. to the Utah Jazz. It's just, that's going to take some time to get used to. But when you think about like the players that they have now, where, they have Lauri Markkanen, who obviously they've been kind of debating what to do for years. They have Keontae George, who he's been blossoming and been a really good on-ball guard this year. How good he is actually is kind of remained to be seen, but the flashes have been really good. And then you throw in Jaren Jackson Jr. next to Markkanen and Walker Kessler. The size right away is elite. The rim protection is high level. And again, depending on how their luck strikes in the lottery, they're going to be tanking like no tomorrow too. This is one of those situations, again, with Danny Ainge, all these picks they have, could get very interesting very quickly.
Yeah. Keontae's been balling. He should be in the running, I would say, for sure, for most improved. Lowry is a hooper. Jaren Jackson is not going to get you more than 4 rebounds, but he will defend the rim, and he will get some buckets sparingly and occasionally, I guess.
Yeah.
So Walker Kessler is going to be rebounding like his life depends on it, which seems
absolutely
to not be a problem for him. Ace Bailey, I think he'll progress well. Bryce Sensabaugh, he had like 40 off the bench earlier this season, so I think they could be interesting. The West is just so competitive that it's like I don't really know how much stock I put in that, but they on paper seem like they're kind of in the running to be doing something special in the West as well.
I mean, they're already 16th in offensive rating this season. I mean, they're 30th in defense. So, I mean, it can only go up from where they're
so
at.
Like from that perspective, it makes total sense why you would go out and get Jaren Jackson, someone who is defending the rim and a pretty versatile defender, whether he's on the perimeter or, as we just mentioned, meeting people at the rim.
And I think when you're talking about this situation versus the Wizards situation, I think you do have to look back at history as a judge here, with Danny Ainge being one of the best executives in basketball. You kind of taking a bet on his tutelage, but also I think also just taking a bet on Will Hardy as a coach. Like, all due respect to,
I think he's a great coach.
Yeah, what the Wizards have going on there. Like, I think when Will Hardy's been given even just a little talent to work with, he's over exceeded whatever expectations have been. So if they get like an AJ DeBanza in there with Triple J, Lauri, and Walker, like that, like very, very quickly can look like a different team. And so all it takes is a little luck. And then this is a team, again, like you said, the West is very deep and that's still very real, but at the same time, like, there's nights where they've looked like, sneaky competitive. And I do think there are going to be some teams, cough, cough, Memphis, they're going to be sliding down, especially after a move like this. Memphis, I mean, I think what this allows them to do too is move on from Ja if they do just want to rip off the Band-Aid. And they don't have to worry if they get like 3 or 4 picks or just one. It's like they don't have to worry about like getting a massive haul, because now they have like 13. I think they got, between Bane and Jackson, they got 7 first-round picks.
Yeah, they're stacked as far as draft capital goes. So if I were them, if Ja doesn't want to be there, which I don't know how much he does, like, I would probably just try to get the best deal for him, tank it up the rest of the season, and then see where the chips fall or where the lottery puts them, and try to go from there.
I like Cedric Howard. They got like,
he's a hooper.
Yeah, they have a couple interesting young guys. I think Howard's a good guy to build around, and we'll see how that goes in the future. But I mean, one thing for certain is that Judge Triple J Bane era is definitely over now. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, if this was just the days leading up to the deadline itself is going to be fascinating, and whatever the Pistons are going to be doing, I know you'll be writing all about it at The Athletic, and we'll be talking about it right here at the pod. Hunter, thanks so much for taking the time, man. Always love having you on the podcast. And again, for people that don't know, where can they find what you're doing and the work that you're up to?
First off, I always love being on the pod. I will be very well caffeinated tomorrow. I'll get 3 shot of espresso, some Starbucks espresso going. But yeah, at Hunter Patterson on Twitter. All of my work is in The Athletic, and also at Hunter Patterson on Blue Sky. Might be Hunt Patterson on there. I'm not really too sure about Blue Sky. Don't use that one as much. But Twitter and The Athletic, that's mostly where you can find me.
Yeah. Support The Athletic, by the way. Support good journalism.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now more than ever, we need it. But anyways, that's going to do it for today's pod. Thank you for those that tuned in. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the coverage that we've got coming down the pike. We'll catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.